We're going to make chainmail. This is the one that they call 4-in-1. So it's going to take about 2 meters of 1 millimeter round wire. And the size mandrel for this is 4.5 millimeters. So wind up your wire, close 2/3 of the jump rings so that you have a nice close fitting. Solder these together. Just lay them on a charcoal block and solder them separately. Then start by soldering 3 of them together, where you put the joins touching each other so that when you solder it, it'll close the join. Then we're going to take an open jump ring, put it through 2 of these soldered jump rings. I'll just move this in so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got an open jump ring with the opening pointed up between 2 of these. Then you take 2 of your soldered jump rings and just place them on that. Place them on the open jump ring, close this, and then I'll show you what to do next. So now you have your 2 jump rings that you've put on. What you're going to do is put another open jump ring through those 2 with the join facing up. Bit fiddly in the beginning, and I normally hold it in my fingers just because it's easier to keep track of what's happening. So now we've got that one through the 2 new ones joined up, and we're going to just place 2 more of the closed ones on that one. Close this one with your parallel jaw pliers, and then continue. Just keep doing that. So you can see this is the beginning of our chainmail. Now at this point we'd put another one through these 2 new ones. Joint up. And then place 2 more closed ones on the one that's open. And then after you get them on, you always make sure that everything's laying in the same direction. Now, at this point, actually in the beginning, if you're using more than one color of wire, you have to figure out which pattern. You're either going to have one color down the middle or one color down one side, or alternate, or go diagonally back and forth. You just have to plan ahead a bit to figure out where the colored jump rings are going to go. Now, you can solder these outer ones. As you assemble it, then the only one that's unsoldered will be the middle one. Or you can just assemble the whole thing and then go back and solder them one at a time. If you do the last way, you just have to make sure that your soldering is really precision soldering, otherwise you're going to end up soldering this together. Now you just continue until you get to the right length. Then to finish, you do another set of 3 like the one we started with, and then we'll just make a simple hook to hold it together. Now you can see as you assemble this, these last 2 are the only 2 that won't keep themselves aligned. So if you just pick this up, it'll all fall back into place with the exception of those 2. So you just open them up like that. Put the open one through those 2. And more often than not, I assemble these by holding them in my fingers. I'll show you. So if you just hold this in your hand, with that laying the way it's supposed to lay, you can just put an open jump ring through those two. And it's quite easy to see whether they jump out of line or not. Yeah. So when you get that open one up, you just thread two more of the closed ones on. And I usually do it with my tweezers because it's easier to see what you're doing. And then while you're holding it, you just take your parallel jaw pliers, grab the end, let it all fall away, take your other pliers and close the jump ring. Now you're ready to put another one on, and it's quite easy to just flip this one over and you can see that it's the way it's supposed to be. Put another open one on. Quite easy. Now if you completely assemble this before you solder it, what you want to do each time you pull one of these joints up to solder it, have a really close look at it and make sure it's dead straight. It makes all the difference between having something that looks great and having something that just looks sloppy. So make sure that each one of these joints is nicely closed and nice and straight. So that's what it's going to look like. Now when you put this into your third hand to solder it, make sure that this jump ring is completely isolated from the rest of the jump rings and that your flame only goes up on an angle where it only touches the join where you're going to solder. So flex it, put just a small amount of solder on your solder pick. Heat this up. When the flux goes clear, touch your solder pick to the join and it'll solder. I'll show you. So just a small amount of flux right on the join. And then we're going to same flame as normal. We're just going to put our solder pick on the opposite side of the solder, heat up the pick, the solder will jump on like that, then back out a little. Then we're going to angle the torch up so that it's only touching the join. Heat it up, the flux will go clear, place your solder, and it'll flow. Now if you don't know pick soldering yet, this is a good time to learn it because this goes really quickly with pick soldering and it takes a long time just by putting your bit of solder on the top and heating it up so that it'll stay. So now solder all of the joins, and what I do at this point is I don't pickle it. I'll just place each one of these joints up with my tweezers, and by not pickling it I can actually see the ones that I've soldered because the jump ring will be dark and the ones that are unsoldered won't be. So solder it. So you can see 50 millimeters makes 30 jump rings, so you should be able to figure out how many you need.